Welcome back to Gameday Tarps episode 10. It's been a couple weeks. We got a lot of news to cover, and then we're going to go over our team rankings for the season, where we think teams are going to finish. First off, we want to send our condolences to Chris Snow's family and the Flames organization for his passing. You never want to see something like that affect a family the way it did, and the way that he went public with it, and really showed his resiliency and his strength and growing awareness for that disease was incredible. So we got to give the props to Chris Snow for really stepping up and just making this public and doing what he could, and to his family for staying so strong and supporting him through it. More news from the Flames. They have signed now captain Michael Backlund to a 2-year, $4.5 million per year contract. The Ducks have signed Trevor Zegras to a 3-year, $5.7 million deal, and Jamie Drysdale to a 3-year, $2.3 million deal. Minnesota Wild extend Marcus Foligno to a 4-year, $4 million contract, and they also extend Ryan Hartman 3 years, $4 million. The Sabres extend both Rasmus Dahlin and Owen Power. Dahlin for 8 years, $11 million, and Power for 7 years, $8.5 million. The Lightning sign Austin Watson from his PTO for his 1 year, $776K. The Jets pretty much broke the hockey world when everyone thought that they were making trades. Instead, they signed both Scheifele and Hellebuck to twin 7-year, $8.5 million deals. The Leafs added Noah Gregor from his PTO. The Avs extended Devon Tays 7 years, $7.25 million. Connor Garland has come out after the Canucks have been trying to move him and has officially requested a trade in the public. I think that's for the Canucks due to their salary cap situation. They're just trying to move his contract on. The Lightning have Vasilevsky have back surgery, and he will miss 8 to 10 weeks. Brandon Sutter was released from his PTO with the Edmonton Oilers, and he is retired. Derek Stepan has retired, and Jonathan Bernier has retired. Okay, that's a lot of news. We're all caught up on that. That's stuff that we fell behind on here, but we're excited to get into our breakdown of our divisions and what we are going to do going forward here. We are going to start in the Metropolitan Division, where the Carolina Hurricanes, I have them finishing first in the Metro. You guys can debate me in a second here. They added guys like Jones, D'Angelo, Bunting, Orlov, and Lemieux. They lost some guys like Puljujarvi, Legason, DeHaan, Stastny, Pacioretty, Gostisbehere, Gardner, Dzingel as well. They have just under $1 million in cap. They have some top prospects to look forward to, like Scott Morrow, Alexander Nikishin, Bradley Nadeau, Jack Drury, and Alexei Hemosalmi. They have a couple draft picks if they were to make trades. A first, 2 seconds, a third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, and something else they could trade this year is Brett Pesce. All right, let's get into this. I have Carolina as first in the Metro. What do you guys think?
I mean, I'm not going to debate that one. I feel like it's going to be a strong pursuit for Carolina to at least get to the Stanley Cup Finals this year. That is their ultimate end goal. And with the maybe even subtraction of Brett Pesce at the trade deadline, I mean, if that's what they got to do and they can add maybe a younger core piece, it could happen. I mean, but yeah, I feel that's a strong position to have Carolina at first in the Metro.
I think the only thing that they're missing is a true goal scorer. They have a lot of great players. They're probably the best roster in the league, but they don't have a guy who's going to score 40-plus goals, I don't think. I think that they have Svechnikov, who's going to get somewhere in between 35 and 40, but can he score like 40, 45, 50? That's a guy that they're really missing as a clutch goal scorer for the playoffs. So that's something I think they need to address, maybe with a Pesce trade.
Well, they got to really address the whole Max Pacioretty situation, because that's what they thought they were going to be getting the guy, like scoring the 35 to 40 goal range. But now, since he is so injury littered, like, how are they going to dump that contract? And then no one's going to want to pick him up, right? Because he's just hasn't been playing in that prime like he has when he was with the Montreal Canadiens. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what they do with his contract.
Well, he ended up in Washington now.
Oh, is he?
He was a
now?
free agent, yeah.
Oh,
He
okay.
just ended up in Washington, just added this year. But either way, I mean, like you said, that's what they expected out of him. He would still be in Carolina if he produced, but he couldn't.
In a perfect world, if he was still healthy, like they could have gotten a lot of good goals out of him.
Exactly.
Well, and Svechnikov's injured right now, I believe, too. And Bunting is in his place. And I think maybe that's what they're kind of hoping out of Bunting, too, is to kind of be a goal guy.
Yeah, Guy even got his first goals at Carolina Hurricane the other night, which is pretty cool to see.
Exactly.
You know, he's having a little bit of a redemption tour now ever since leaving the Toronto Maple Leafs.
They sure got scrappy with Brendan Lemieux and Michael Bunting. I mean, they're definitely working towards being scrappier. And then adding Orlov on defense really gives them some more offense there. We can go on to Columbus. They have added goaltender Spencer Martin, rookie sensation Adam Fantilli, Damon Severson, Ivan Provorov. They lost guys like Bayreuther, Richards, Pedersen, Gillies. So more so minor guys. They basically kept their team together. They have just under $4 million in cap. Top prospects, Denton Matejchuk, Jordan Dumais, Martin Raisavi, Luca Pinelli, and Tyler Peddle. They have a first, 2/3, a fourth, fifth, and sixth. And they could potentially trade guys like Roslovic or Texier. And for me, even though they're better, they're still 8th in the Metro.
Yeah, I mean, I seen a few teams that were linked to Jack Roslovic come trade deadline, and even so, if they even move him beforehand. But my predictions for the Columbus Blue Jackets, I think I see them 6th or 7th, almost dead last in the Metro. I don't see them much of as a contender, especially even with their new head coach after the whole Mike Babcock scandal. Like, Damon Severson was benched the entire third period last night. That's just a telltale sign of, like, this coach that's in Columbus now, like, it's his way or the highway. Again, another guy like that. So I don't know. I really can't see any chemistry between coach and players on and off the ice, and I don't think it'll be going very well. So,
well, I think Columbus is looking to definitely try to have a comeback season from last year's season. It was definitely disappointing. I don't know if we're going to get the best out of them with Fantilli. I think they're expecting a lot out of probably the not very much they did on the off season. I think so they're probably going to be again where you have them. What was it, like 6th, 8th?
I got the bottom of the division.
Yeah, so that wouldn't surprise me at all.
I mean, yeah, I like the duo of Korpisalo and Merzlikins last year. I mean, but when they offed him to the LA Kings, I'm like, well, you guys got no faith in this goalie core no more. Now you're going to have to call somebody up from the minors. Like, it's so hit and miss with Columbus. Like, I don't know. Yeah, I've got them, like, dead last in the Metro, honestly.
All right, New Jersey Devils added Nosek, Tierney, Shalgren, and Toffoli. They got rid of Graves, Bernier, Tatar, Wood, and Sharon Govich, and they have just under $2 million in cap left. They have guys like Luke Hughes, who has made the team, Simon Nemec, Nico Dawes, Seamus Casey, and Alexander Holtz in the prospect pool. They have a first, a third, 2/5, a sixth, and a seventh if they're going to make some trades. Guys who could be traded are Cal and Nolan Foote, Kevin Ball, Simon Nemec, Vitek Vanacek, Akira Schmid, or Nico Dawes, and I see them finishing 3rd in the Metro. My thought on trading a guy like Simon Nemec is only if they're going big for a real game-breaking player. They don't really need Simon Nemec, as proven that literally Luke Hughes jumped him immediately. I think that they could off Nemec for a proven NHLer with their $2 million cap and maybe get some more and just try and build from there. So I got them 3rd in the Metro. What do you guys think about New Jersey?
I mean, well, it was clear from day one, the minute that Ryan Graves signed with the Pittsburgh Penguins, that the New Jersey organization had full confidence in having Luke Hughes come up full time. But now you're going from, a veteran D-man who has had lots of experience to trusting the process with now this new young defenseman as in the 3rd and final Hughes brother, Luke. So it's really tough to say because now we're early in the season as this video is being recorded. New Jersey actually played tonight, and I didn't see very much from Luke at all. So they're just really trying to see what happens. But, I mean, having Tatar walk to Colorado and, now that there's speculations of Vitek Vanacek, being off, Vitek Vanacek is a really good goalie. I don't see why you wouldn't want him as your number one starter goalie. I feel like New Jersey still has some tweaks to pull off to finally have their final piece of the puzzle, but I'd still say they're a strong contender for at least 2nd in the Metro.
I see New Jersey as a third. What do you have them? 3rd in the division? Yeah, I see them around there. If Jack Hughes stays healthy for this team, he's definitely relied upon heavily, I think. And he can handle the load, but he's got to stay healthy. But other than that, I think, yeah, around third, you're probably right. And Toffoli, yeah, hopefully Toffoli has a great year too in New Jersey. They're obviously winning that trade so far between them and Calgary. Sharangovich has shown nothing, really.
New York Islanders. They've added Julian Gauthier and Kuhlman. Very short list. They lost guys like Andrioff, Panik, Corey Schneider, who retired, and Zach Parise. So really, not really much gain and loss. They're actually negative almost $500,000 in the cap right now. Their top prospects are Willem Dufour, Matthew Nagy, Sam Bolduc, Ruslan Ishkakov, and Quinn Finley. They have a first, second, fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh overall picks, or not overall, but round picks. Guys who I could see be traded if their year falls apart. Clutterbuck, Martin, and Aho all on last year of their deals. And I see them as a fifth in the Metro, and for me that is out of the playoffs. What about you guys? How are you feeling about the New York Islanders?
I got him fifth. I mean, they need their star player in Matt Barzal to step it up. He's been fairly cold. Even to start the season and even last year, he just isn't that top caliber player that, he was in his rookie year and all the way up until 2020. It's just a flip or a switch needs to be flipped on with that guy, and along with Anders Lee and Cal Clutterbuck, even with Josh Bailey leaving, that just fills a void. But the New York Islanders, with the addition of Bo Horvat at last year's trade deadline, honestly didn't even pan out as well as they thought it would be. But they did lock him down for a massive deal. But still, it's just the New York Islanders are just extremely based. They're not going to be as good as they used to be. They still got to compete with their upstate rivals in Buffalo and in the Manhattan rivalry in the New York Rangers. They're not going to be seeing the top of the division anytime soon with the way that the productivity is becoming from their top players.
Well, yeah, the difference is between now and Barzal's rookie years, he had Tavares to guide him through that and get as many points as he did, right? And I think Barzal needs a guy that can score for him. I think Barzal's more of a passer for the team. And I think, they just need to find a guy to score for him. And maybe they were hoping with Horvat. But I like the Horvat acquisition. They are getting a little younger. But no, I don't see them making it in the playoffs this year whatsoever. They're going to be a mediocre team this year.
All right, let's jump the river to the Rangers. They added Tyler Pitlick, Gustafson, Bonino, Jonathan Quick, and Blake Wheeler. They lost guys like Tyler Mott, Halak, Carpenter, Smith, Mikula, Vlad Tarasenko, Patrick Kane, and Libor Hayek. They have just under $700,000 in cap. Their top prospects are Brennan Othman, Will Cooley, Gabriel Perreault, Adam Sikora, and Bryce McConnell-Barker. And their draft picks available for trade or drafting is a first, a second, fourth, fifth, and sixth. Players who I have that could be traded are Alex Lafreniere, Capo Caco, and Braden Schneider. But I have the New York Rangers as second in the Metro. Based on Igor Shesterkin's play, I think he can get them to that second spot.
I think Shesterkin healthy. I think Lafreniere and Kako, they definitely need to step up big this year. Keandre Miller, yeah, I think losing Kane, you lose a little bit of a scoring aspect. Second's a little high for me. They might finish lower, I think. Maybe around third. But, yeah, I don't know. I don't think they're going to be the same Rangers team they were last year.
Yeah, I got them battling out for third and fourth, but I'd say a solid third pick for me. I mean, they got Will Cooley, who made the opening night roster, and he just recently scored his first professional goal with the New York Rangers, so congrats to him. I mean, they got a great prospects pool, as you alluded to. Brennan Ottman, was just here in Kamloops for the Memorial Cup. He went off for Peterborough. And then guys like Dylan Garand and I see guys like Capo Caco and Lafreniere, who once upon a time were great prospects for the New York Rangers, who could potentially be moved. I mean, you could see teams like maybe even the New Jersey Devils might take a crack at one of those guys, to fill in the voids of what they need. Because they, again, they lost Tatar and a good addition into Foley. But yeah, with the New York Rangers, I feel a solid third in the Metro is a good position for me, honestly.
Philadelphia Flyers. They added, they added players that are going to keep them in the basement. Victor Mete, Mark Stahl, Garnet Hathaway, and Cal Peterson. They lost guys like Anthony DeAngelo, Trevor Van Riemsdyk, Justin Braun, Brendan Lemieux, Kiefer Bellows. They have $3.5 million in cap. They got really exciting prospects coming up. Matvey Michkov, Cutter Gauthier, Tyson Forster, Bobby Brink, Oliver Bonk, and Annette Carson Bjarnson. And they've done a really good job collecting draft picks. They have 2 firsts, 2 seconds, a third, fourth, fifth, 2 sixths, and a seventh. Guys who I could see be traded for assets to continue their rebuild are Cam Atkinson, Travis Konechny, Travis Sanheim, and Carter Hart. And I see them only one position ahead of Columbus by maybe 2 to 5 points at the end of the year in 7th place.
Yeah, I don't think they've really put much effort into keeping this team into a playoff team. I think the rebuild's probably a good stage for them.
Yeah, at the end of the year, I mean, you could probably watch Columbus and Philadelphia here battle it out for who's going to be the sore loser of the Metropolitan Division. Like, you got guys that are coming up like Carson Bjornson of the Brandon Wheat Kings, and their starting goaltender. Like, they got a steal in the draft. This guy is lights out for Brandon, and he is probably going to be the next Carter Hart for them. If they develop him well, they let him stay in juniors this year, and then the next year he could probably go to Phantoms. But yeah, I mean, okay, you guys got guys like, Oliver Bonk, they drafted from the London Knights. Yippee. Not a great pick by them, but also, like, the amount of subtractions they got this year, like, just, getting rid of Tony DeAngelo, that's a real gritty player there that, was a long-time Philadelphia Flyer.
Well, I think he wanted out, though.
That's fair, yeah.
That's a Tortorella effect.
Yeah.
He didn't want to play for Tortorella.
Exactly.
And then, not washed up, but just very end-of-the-line guys like Mark Stahl, like, that's not going to be a guy that's going to get you anywhere fast anytime soon. Like, Brendan Lemieux just bouncing around from team to team. I mean, I don't see the Flyers doing real much this year. And then, having your star player Travis Konechny, like, always linked to, like, being on the trade block, that's kind of bad. You guys used to be a team to mess with in the Metro, and now you're just something that just just rolls over and takes the hits. Like, wow.
And a team known for keeping players that are noteworthy for their careers. Giroux, mostly Voracek. Guys like Simon Gagne played there a long time. Like, they've had guys who have played their career there for an extended period of time. But now, obviously, they're going into rebuild, so they had to shift their mindset. But a guy like Konechny, who's done really well for them and given them a lot, he's not old enough to be not in their playoff window, but he's not young enough to really be there during the rebuild. So I get that it's a hard place, and teams are obviously calling. I mean, why would you not call to see if he's available? But I think he's a guy that needs to stay.
These Philadelphia Flyers at one point used to be called the Broad Street Bullies. Now they're just the Broad Street Pansies. Like, they're not tough anymore, and they just, like I said, they roll over and take the hits. Like, this is a team that's just so soft now, and they're going to be a laughingstock for years to come. They're just going to be bottom of the barrel again. All
right, Pittsburgh Penguins, Dallas's original team, because he's a Crosby lover. All right, they traded the offseason with Carlson. Local kid here in Kamloops, Johnny Ludwig. They had White, Harkins, Hinestroza, Butcher, Get Zahorna back. Nedeljkovic, Graves, Achari, Nieto, Eller, Riley Smith. All that is added. They are subtracting Bonino, Tokarski, Archibald, Kulikov, Dumoulin, Heinen, and Kajula. They have just under $200K in cap. Their top prospects are Braden Yeager, Owen Pickering, Joel Blomqvist, Sam Poulin, Tristan Braz. They've limited draft picks from all their trading. They have a 2nd, 4th, 6th, and 2 7ths. Guys who I could see being traded are Pierre-Olivier Joseph, Rem Pitlick, Alexander Nylander and Ty Smith, and I see them as fourth in the Metro. What do you guys have on the Pittsburgh Penguins?
Well, Riley, thanks for starting that off so hot. I might as well be the first to comment on your opening line there. So, I mean, I like all the prospects that the Pittsburgh Penguins have been drafting recently. Like, you got guys like Braden Yager out of the Moose Jaw Warriors, and then you got divisional rival Swift Current Broncos prospect there, Owen Pickering. Like, that's two solid, great picks that the Penguins have been able to acquire the last few years. And then, having all these old guys going out, like they brought back Benino, like we've already covered, like that was not a good one. Dustin Tokarski, yes, see you later, buddy. My biggest concern was Brian Dumoulin. Like that was such a good, solid defenseman that you guys just let walk to Seattle. Had no interest in re-signing, and then Jan Ruda, like big body defenseman out there, just out the door. See you later. And then I like guys like Riley Smith. Like he has a handful of goals now for the Pittsburgh Penguins, one of them being a breakaway, and like that it was such a steal from the Vegas Golden Knights. Erik Karlsson now hasn't been very shaky for the Pittsburgh Penguins. Like you get it, you're on a new team, but like he is not the Norris caliber that he started off so hot last year for the San Jose Sharks, because there's not that much guys that takes the spotlight away from you in San Jose. It's a small market. You got guys like Thomas Hertl, whose hype has long passed. Logan Couture, not that great of a hype around. But, this is why when Phil Kessel came to Pittsburgh in 2015, he didn't need the spotlight on him anymore, because Malkin, Letang, and mostly Crosby, they had the spotlight. So he didn't need, he needed to be him, that guy. Now that's what Karlsson needs to understand, is that he doesn't need to be him no more. Just do your part, play the blue line, play the bumper position in the power play, and you guys will be set. But, the other night when I watched him against the home opener with the Chicago Blackhawks, he could not block a shot to save his life. He would skate back into his end, and then, 2-on-1, did not bother to even put his stick out, couldn't even block a shot. I feel like Karlsson either needs to break in pretty quick in Pittsburgh, or it's going to come crashing down on them pretty fast, and he's not going to have a fairly productive year for them. So I can see Pittsburgh fighting to just make wild card this year, honestly.
Yeah, I think Pittsburgh's just trying to just kind of stay as a playoff team, stay a little bit relevant. I mean, Jari, I think, has been talked about as a trade target for a couple of years now, and they re-sign him, right? So seems like they're committing to their core a little bit. Adding Karlsson, you kind of hope he finds his positioning on that team to keep you in a playoff spot. Jari staying healthy. Nedeljkovic, being a good backup for them. Yeah, I could see them fighting for a wild card or just making it in to the playoffs, hopefully. It wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, I'm not surprised one bit about Karlsson. I know we talked about this earlier on, but he thrives when the reins are just passed to him. When Ottawa was bad and they just said, hey, this kid's coming up to the NHL, give him the green light. Perfect. Ottawa started to get good. He became a pretty good defender. They were in the playoffs. He had his terrible injury, and then he couldn't really shape into a two-way defender. They sent him to San Jose. Him and Burns can't play together. They are trying to be successful there. They can't get it done. And I just found it weird that Pittsburgh thought their success hinged on Karlsson. Maybe it was tough for me.
Well, and just think that Karlsson was on that losing end in the Eastern Conference Finals in 2017 when Chris Kunitz decided to score the double OT winner against him. And think of how much sorrow he felt after that for a long time. And now this might be his only opportunity now to get that far, because now he's on the winning side with Crosby's and the Malkin. So really tough to judge, a couple games in, but we'll have to see halfway through the season. We can
exactly, and just a few games in too. Like I don't want to chalk it up as he's going to be a total bust of a trade. I mean, he could turn it on and still get 70 points. I just don't see him winning the Norris and getting 100 points again. It's just not going to happen in Pittsburgh's defensive style system. But he's still a high quality player who deserves, to be moved to a team where he wants to win. But I just don't think he's going to push the needle as far as they hoped.
Well, isn't this also Jake Ensel's contract year as well?
It is.
And taking on Karlsson's contract, that's almost like a do-or-die moment for this team.
It is, yeah. And Jake Ensel's been their top 3 scorer for the last odd number of years since 2017 when he broke in January of 2017. This is a guy that you need to lock down. Why would you go out and recklessly spend with an $11.5 million contract. And what does it say here? They got how much cap space left? Like, it's just ridiculous.
200K, just
200K,
under.
yeah. So you're gonna have to off a guy like Brian Rust or like a Ricard Racal. Like, I don't know. Kyle Dubas seems like a very smart, tenacious general manager. Like, I feel like he's gonna pull a couple cards out of his sleeve. But man, they really need to get that Jake Ensel situation locked down, especially with his old team there. The Toronto Maple Leafs are now in the same situation with William Nylander. Like, these are two solid forwards that you need to get locked down. These are your main scorers right there, man.
Well, that's one thing I'm thinking. There's a couple teams that fit this bill, but Carey Price should be the number one sought-after guy in the league. $10.5 million of LTIR cap. If you want to keep your team together in this day and age, you need LTIR to win cups. It's been proven for Tampa, it's been proven for Colorado, and it's been proven for Vegas. All three of them, 3 in a row, 4 in a row, all LTIR, used in the season, get the better roster, come in the playoffs. It's proven that's what you need to get the step ahead because the parity's so good. $10.5 million in LTIR cap to use on your roster is groundbreaking. I don't, if you're in a win now mode like the Tampa Bays, let's even say the Boston Bruins and stuff like you gotta be going. Who cares? 2 firsts, 3 firsts, a couple firsts and prospects. Like, it doesn't matter. Whatever you can give them to get that is worth it if you're trying to win. If you're honestly trying to win, that's what you need to go for. Up next, the last team in the division, the Washington Capitals. They added Pacioretty, Prisky, Matthew Phillips, and McAlrath. They subtracted Hagelin, Fucali, Irwin, and Shiri. They have $0 of cap. Their top prospects are Ryan Leonard, Andrew Kistal, Ivan Miroshchenko, Hendrix Lapierre, Vincent Iorio, and Ryan Hofer. They have a first, 2/3, a fourth, fifth, and sixth, and they could have, I see Mantha and Kuznetsov potentially traded this year, and I see them as sixth in the Metro. What do you guys think about the Washington Capitals?
I'm not gonna disagree with you on that. The Washington, they're not as competitive as they used to. Ovi's getting up there. He's so close to catching up to Wayne Gretzky's goal record. Like, this is a guy that you need to be building around right now. Because, he doesn't have his 1-2 guy anymore, Nicholas Backstrom. Like, okay, Evgeny Kuznetsov is still there. Great. But you know what? Now they're talking about offing TJ Oshie now. So you know what I mean? Like, it's just, Washington isn't as competitive anymore as they used to be. And this is a team that is exciting to watch. And this is history about to be made. And you're not going to want to have Ovi going into a contract year saying, hey, guess what? I want to go to a contender before I retire as I'm catching up to Wayne Gretzky's goal record. Like, you still want to be selling out the seats to watch Ovi make history, but they're not doing anything about it. They're literally just going about it so wrong in all the wrong ways. And I think that for them to be a playoff caliber team again and not be sitting sixth in the Metro, like, this is start looking around for certain trades.
You know what? Obviously, Ovi's built different. He's probably going to get 40-plus goals. Like, I think that's just given.
I think it's 52 to the record now, but go ahead.
Yeah,
I think it's 52.
I just mean, like, in his age, you're not seeing that, like, in most cases. So he's just, he's a generational scorer, right? But at this point, I think you're just going for that as that team is just letting Ovi just do that record. I don't know if you're in it for the cup anymore. You already got it, so he can retire happy, right? And what a chance they've given with that Matthew Phillips kid. What a snag from Calgary, obviously. And he scored his first goal pro against Calgary. So good on him for that.
We had him as one of our... We're doing new segments on Twitter, and we had him as one of our Tarps on Stars of the Week. Or Stars of the Night, sorry, because he did that with his goal and assist. So it was good to see Phillips. You and me, Dakota especially, have been talking about Phillips for like 6 years. And how we think he's just small, but he had all this talent, and he should really be coming up when he was playing on Victoria with our local kid, Joe Hickett's there. So, yeah, I think it was great for him. What a awesome way to start it off, kind of sticking it to the man in a way when Calgary chose not to bring him back, and I think that was awesome for him to get that chance.
What better way to score on your first professional National Hockey League goal against your former team who had no confidence in you?
Right, that's a special moment for sure. So he deserves it, and I mean he's got the record now for lightest player to ever make a pro team. So, and he's probably also one of the reasons why Mantha is getting scratched more often. So expect him to maybe be out soon.
And Mantha's not that bad of a player. Like, he was great for the Detroit Red Wings. So, I mean, I know someone's going to snag him if they put him on waivers. So, don't be surprised.
All right, for the Metro, we'll go into a little bit more depth after we do the Atlantic right after this. But who are your guys' 3 playoff teams? I have Carolina, New York Rangers, New Jersey. I am choosing only 3 teams from the Metro to make the playoffs this year.
I'm going to counter that and say I have 4. 4 from the Metro. I have the New Jersey Devils, the Carolina Hurricanes, the Pittsburgh Penguins, and I have the New York Rangers. Those are all going to be very tough teams come March and April at the very end of the season. And don't disregard that one of these teams is going to be making some splashes at the deadline too, and come February. Like, Patty Kane still has yet to be signed, and one of those teams from the Metro has just yet to be the New York Rangers again. So when he comes back, don't be surprised if he goes back to the Rangers for one last rodeo.
I do not envy you, because you have 3 teams in the Atlantic of either Tampa, Boston, Florida, Buffalo, Ottawa, or Detroit. Oh, that's a tough.
Don't forget Florida just barely made.
Oh, I know they just barely.
Year.
But that you have 6 teams there that you have to cut 3 of them. That is a tough. But we'll get into it more. But that is tough. That's why I couldn't do it. I was like, there's too much in the Atlantic.
Well, the way I'm looking at it right now is that Boston, Toronto, and Tampa, they're obviously the powerhouses of the league. You got the Buffaloes, you got the Detroit Red Wings, like, in the Atlantic. And then, even Florida, like, they have not had a strong start to the season. They've had a lot of subtractions from their team in the offseason. And, they blew a gasket against, in the Stanley Cup playoffs against the Vegas Golden Knights last year. It was a fluke, honestly. But, Florida has not had a strong start to the start of the season this year. And I can still say that the powerhouses of the Atlantic will remain the powerhouses. Like, Buffalo ain't going to get any better. They've been showing it. Tage Thompson has been ice cold lately, and all these prospects they've been starting on opening night. They're getting their ice, their time on the ice, but, they're not showing up very much.
At the same time, you got to look at it as of right now. Is Florida relying heavily on Bobrovsky's hot start in the playoffs last year, with sending Spencer Knight down this year, and Buffalo off to a cold start? You got Detroit, who's, I think, doing more than I expected so far, and Tampa Bay, Vasilevsky's been out, and they haven't really done anything to fix that goalie spot.
It's tough times.
And yeah, exactly. And they're losing to teams like Detroit, which is a little bit unexpected. Buffalo. And who knows how Vasilevsky's going to perform after that back injury, right? Like, that could affect him when he's back.
Didn't Vasilevsky recently, a couple years ago, have like a big injury too when he came back from surgery?
No, this is his first. This is his first major, yeah.
Okay, wow.
Sorry, Badakbar, we cut you off on your 3 or 4 or 5 Metro slots.
But exactly, that's what I was just going off of, is you got to look at what they're doing now, right, and how they're performing. Like, were they overhyped, or now are they showing that sign of the decrease, right? And Tampa, with me, Stamkos just got injured. And is Vasilevsky going to be good when he comes back? So, Florida, are they overhyped? Are they just going to make it in again? Or are they just going to make it out, right? So, that's kind of where I'm at.
Well, Boston's also proving with a lot of subtractions that, they can still be a powerhouse in the Atlantic Division, Bertuzzi's gone, Orlov's gone, Taylor Hall's gone, Patrice Bergeron retired, and Brad Marchand is now taking the reins of that team, and they're already undefeated within 3 games. Like, it's crazy. Like, Boston still has a lot in the gas tank there, so don't be surprised if they're going to take the Atlantic again this year.
My 4 is honestly the exact same as Dallas, and just for that reason being what I just explained. But yeah, the 4 teams I got going are New York, Pittsburgh, New York Rangers, Islanders, Pittsburgh, and New Jersey for me.
All right. On to the Atlantic. I thought we had a great discussion already about them. Let's bring them on. So, the Boston Bruins. Add James Van Riemsdyk, Morgan Geekie, Milan Lucic is back, Boquist, Lauko, Regula, Shattenkirk, and Patrick Brown. They lose Hall, Foligno, Bergeron, Krejci, Bertuzzi, Heinen, Greer, Hathaway, and Clifton. They have just over $500,000 in cap. They do have a dry prospect pool, but their prospects are Mason Lowry, Fabian Lysell, Matthew Poitras, who made the team, or I think they call him Poitras, Brett Harrison, and John Beecher. They have no picks in the first 3 rounds, a 4th, a 5th, a 6th, and no 7th. I don't see them making trades this year because they're kind of stuck with their roster unless they can add a top center, but again, they don't have many assets. And for me, Dally, you just said you have them as a powerhouse. They've started strong. I'm putting them 6th in the Atlantic.
Fair choice. I mean, yeah, like you said, they're pretty dry as far as assets go. I mean, like, old Vancouver Giants prospect there, Fabian Lysell, I think tops that entire list of actual good prospects that they have. And then, all their 2024 draft picks, like, they have none in the first 3 rounds. Like, that's going to be no trade bait that any team's going to be interested in if you guys want to make a splash at the deadline come February. Like, that's just, they went all in last year and they just tanked against the Florida Panthers. So, I don't know. It'll be interesting. But yeah, I'm saying strong to my word. I say I got them first. You never know. Boston's always been, top in the Atlantic.
Yeah, Boston's starting hot right now, but I could see them maybe just not making the playoffs, but I mean, I think they got trade depth with Swayman. I think he's in talks of maybe getting traded. But if they don't want to trade him, then they're still proving that they got 2 hot goaltenders if they can stay hot from last season. But yeah, I don't know. I think they're still in a playoff run with this team that they got.
I just think with them, the beginning of the year is always a crapshoot. You have goalies that are kind of cold. You have players that just had better off seasons and they're coming out hot. But to me, as the season gets on, there's a few key factors and factors that Boston has dominated at. Number 1 is defensive zone faceoff wins. Boston rarely lost defensive zone faceoff wins because they had Krejci or Bergeron on the ice. I think that as the season goes on, more goals are going to be piling up because they're not winning as many faceoffs in the D zone. I think that the more shots that they're going to be getting due to the lack of forward depth is going to start bleeding more goals in on Allmark and Swayman and making them look a little more human as a tandem. And I think their D, like Charlie McAvoy and Hampus Lindholm, I think they're going to get burnt out playing so much, trying to make up for those demons. I think they're starting wicked. I'll admit it. They are probably the best team in the league to start the year, but I just don't think they can sustain it with their lack of forward depth continuing. They have probably one of the best D in the league still, maybe the best goalie tandem in the league still, but it's really got to come together up front to me for them to keep going. Next, Buffalo Sabres. They had Cale Clogg, Connor Clifton, and Eric Johnson, and they call up Zach Benson to start the year. They really only lost Malcolm Subban, Ville Hinostroza, and Craig Anderson. They do have a lot of cap. Some wondering, as we saw today, news coming out that Patrick Kane is looking at Buffalo, Detroit, or the New York Rangers to return to. So maybe that $8.8 million they have in cap could go to Patrick Kane. Top prospects are Zach Benson, as noted, Yori Kulich, Matthew Savoy, Isaac Rosen, and Noah Osland. They have a 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 6th, and 7th round picks. Players who I think could be traded are Krebs and Olofsson and Gergensons on their last year of their deals. I have Buffalo taking 3rd in the Atlantic. I'm worried about their goaltending, but I think that because the regular season is a lot about offense, I think that their offensive output from their players and their defense will result in them jumping into a guaranteed playoff spot this year.
I just want to start right off the bat that Vancouver, on a side note, you guys effed up big time. All right, you could have gotten a hometown kid in Zachary Benson of the Wenatchee Wild, and you guys just passed up on him for Tom Willander. Like, Zachary Benson was one of the top scorers in the Western Hockey League last year for the now now retired Winnipeg Ice. Like, this guy is unbelievable. He's fast and he is very skilled. And I think he is going to be a lethal weapon for the Buffalo Sabres come in the next couple of years. But yeah, congrats to him, making opening night roster. He's definitely out there to prove himself. He's not as big as all the other NHLers out there, but yeah, like, Buffalo has a lot of cap space to play with, and don't be surprised if they try to make a splash come deadline, because now, with how much of a farm system that they have grown in the last few years, like, Buffalo definitely has the assets, and they also have the prospects to come up to fill these older guys' shoes to start being these big top scorers.
I think it definitely depends on these guys. Depends on the play. I think it depends on all the players that just signed big contracts, right? I mean, Tage is kind of cold. Tuck is kind of cold. I think Darlene and Power need to earn their contracts. So, I like the odds of this team making the playoffs if they can keep up the hype that they had last year, obviously. But yeah, I'm hoping to see them in the top 3 in that division.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's kind of hard to dictate when you give these, I'd say, younger players who are just past, their 3 years of being in the NHL, and their potential's high, and they can produce. But now that you're coming into this new season cold, and you just inked, a massive, big bag contract, and now you're not producing. Like, I like the fact that you got to earn the money. So who's to say Owen Power and Rasmus Dahlin go absolutely cold for the entire year? They made their bank, but they didn't do anything for the team. Like, it's really so hard hit and miss when you're coming to a contract year, but you want to really lock these guys down, and then they just don't show up to the rink. You know what I mean? Like, it's hard, but I hope for Buffalo's sake, they're an exciting, fun team to watch. I hope they finally get out of the gutters and make playoffs for the first time in like over 12 years.
Awesome. All right. Detroit Red Wings. They add Jeff Petrie, Alex DeBrincat, Clint Costin, Daniel Sprong, Fisher, Reimer, and Leon in net. They lose guys like Kubalik, Zadina, Chason, Hag, Nedeljkovic, and Osterley. They have $4.5 million in cap. They got some good prospects in Simon Edmondson, Nate Danielson, Marco Kasper, Axel Sandin-Pellikka, William Wallander, and Sebastian Cossa. They have one pick in every round of the draft, 1 to 7. I think guys who they could trade, just due to them being on the last year of their deal, are Veleno or Sprong. If the year goes south, get some assets for them. And I see them as 7th in the Atlantic, near the bottom. The Yzer plan's getting there. The division is about to do a flip. You can see it coming. It's just not yet for them.
Detroit has been trying to find their goalie ever since Chris Osgood actually left, and they thought Jimmy Howard was the answer, but obviously he was very flip-floppish. But now they got a guy that Yzerman drafted, Sebastian Cossa, who was part of that 2022 Western Hockey League Championship team, who was arguably, I've heard from many people say, was one of the deepest core teams in the CHL in a lot of years. Like, he was up with guys like Luke Prokop, Dylan Gunther, Jake Neighbors. Like, Sebastian Cossa is a lockdown goaltender, and if he can prove himself in Grand Rapids this year and maybe make a shot with the Detroit Red Wings, I can see him being an elite goaltender within the next 5 years. Sebastian Cossa is a very good pick, along with Nate Danielson from the Brandon Wheat Kings. Like, this guy is a top-line center. He is a pretty good sniper. Yeah, I'd say the draft picks that the Detroit Red Wings have gotten in recent memory are going to start looking good on paper once they make their big league debuts.
Yeah, I think Detroit, obviously, it's off to a hot start right now. But, like you said, I could see them going 7th in the Atlantic Division.
They got a strong start from their captain, though, in Dylan Larkin. Like, he's been proving himself like that. He belongs there still.
Him and DeBrincat both. Hot starts.
Exactly. And who knows, hopefully, maybe if they are trying to go for that playoff run hard this year, it'd be sweet to see Kane relink that connection with DeBrincat.
Could you imagine that first line of Larkin, DeBrincat, and Kane? That would be filthy, boys.
All right. Florida Panthers. They add Carlson, Kulikov, Stolars, Mike Riley, Mikkola, Ekman Larson, Lawrence, and Rodriguez. They lose a lot. Gudas, Eric Stahl, Mark Stahl, Leon, and Hornquist, and they are actually negative $450,000. The prospect pool is a little weak. They have Samaskevich, Justin Sourdiff, Sachin, Gregory Denisenko, and Michael Benning. They have no first, no second, a third, a fourth, 2 fifths, a sixth, and a seventh. And due to their lack of cap and their lack of interesting players on the roster, I don't think that they can trade anyone or would trade anyone. And I have them as 5th in the Atlantic.
Talking about Justin Sourdiff, he actually just made his NHL debut tonight for Florida. I mean, that's a solid position for Florida. I mean, I can't see them really contending myself this year. They're just, farm assets are weak. I mean, they lost a lot of good pieces from that Stanley Cup Finals run last year. I can't really see them doing much with this year, unfortunately.
Yeah, and they're without Ekblad and Montour to start the year, so that's tough.
Yeah, exactly. So, as I was saying earlier, I think it's all going to come down to they were a team that just barely made the playoffs, and yeah, they made a deep run, but now it's heavily dependent on Bobrovsky being that hot start goaltender because, they need to find that solid backup. They sent Spencer Knight down, right, for reasons, and
which is unfortunate. The guy was lights out.
Exactly. So that's a big loss to them, and having that Ekblad there gone for a bit and Montour, like they're I see this team not making the playoffs this year.
Well, we talked about earlier about how having Alexander Barkov having that explosive performance last year in the Stanley Cup playoffs, but I think a lot of the times it's underlooked is Brandon Montour. He was a huge piece, especially in the first round against the Boston Bruins. Like, this guy was just going off. He, just now losing him for even a while to start the year.
Middle of next month, maybe.
Yeah, that's pretty bad. So they got to get it together.
December.
And that's their top defenseman right there.
Yeah, they're in trouble. I might be regretting putting them 5th. I think I'm going to actually change that as I'm reading it. I just
they'll be flip flopping for sure at the bottom.
Either way, we'll go on to Montreal, who've done some good things. According to where they are in their rebuild, they added New Hook. They traded to Smith for Pearson. Those are really their 2 big adds. They lost Tierney, Byron to retirement, Jonathan Drouin, Gurianov, and Carey Price, not to retirement, but as announced, he is obviously not going to play because of injury. As of right now, they have $0 in cap space. Their top prospects are good ones. David Reinbacher, Lane Hootson, Sean Farrell, Owen Beck, and Joshua Waugh. They have 1 first, 1 second, 2 thirds, a fourth, 2 fifths, a sixth, and 3 sevenths. So lots of picks. I think they're doing the right things for themselves. Players who could be traded. Monahan, they just signed to a 1-year deal. He could go to a contender. And they have 3 goalies on the roster right now, so Samuel Montembeault could be traded for some assets if needed. And I have them as 8th in the Atlantic, but I think that's where they want to be.
Yeah, I think this team's still in a rebuild.
I mean, I would love to see Monty go to Calgary again. Calgary's still looking for a solid scorer. So, I mean, hell, even Monahan got a goal the other night for Montreal. Like, he still has the scorer's touch. Like, don't count him out.
It's just injuries. He's a heck of a player.
Hell of a player.
Yeah.
I mean, Montreal could just be looking to build up that draft stock now. I mean, Doc just got a season-ending injury with a torn MCL and ACL, so that's a big player gone. So do they keep Monahan or they could trade it for a pick, but yeah, I mean, this team has no solid goaltending. They lost scoring, obviously, now.
Well, even in their captain, Nick Suzuki, like, I've noticed through the first 3 games, like, he's been ice cold. He's been quiet. Maybe his leadership is different off the ice in the locker room, but, like, on the ice, like, he can make a fancy pass all he wants, but, like, I haven't seen him get on the score sheet much. And that's, like, one of their top 2 guys that they rely on the most. Like, Cole Caulfield, like, yeah, he has a goal or 2 here and there, but, you can't just rely on those guys night in and night out. Like, Montreal definitely needs some depth pieces, but that's probably not what they're looking for right now, as you alluded to, because, yeah, they're just comfortably okay with sitting almost dead last in the Atlantic, still retooling, rebuilding, whatever, but, at least get some fans in the building and at least have some scoring going on.
That's a debate I want to have with you guys too. I think personally, Cole Caulfield may be the most overrated guy at the beginning of this year. People are saying he's going to go for 40 or 50 goals, and he's just this stud. And I get it; he's actually a good player. I like Cole Caulfield, but do you guys see him as 40 to 50 this year? Like that high of a quality of player?
25 goals max, I see. Honestly,
I don't see. 30. 30 for me is his high point.
Yeah, I mean, 30 this year I think is reasonable for him. But who knows? I mean, every player has definitely outshone others, right? I don't know. 40 wouldn't surprise me, honestly, but 30 I think is his highest this year.
well, and Caulfield is a guy that you want to build around, with a couple tweaks that the Blackhawks have made for Bedard's magnificent arrival to the Chicago organization. Like, they brought Nick Foligno and Taylor Hall, former first overall pick. Like, these aren't guys that are gonna absolutely thread the needle and give Bedard all the beautiful passes in the world and let him score. Like, Bedard even only has 3 points to start the year, but like for a team like Chicago and Montreal, who are both heading in the same direction, like there needs to be a really good depth piece to have a guy like Connor Bedard and Cole Caulfield, very young superstars in this league that need to have a great player on their wing to, give them these good passes and give them these good scoring chances, So, like I said, 25 goals max for Cole Caulfield. He is a bit overhyped, I will agree, but that does not disregard the fact that he's an amazing player.
Yeah, I think he's a career, at some point, 50-goal scorer. I do. I just think he's off a season-ending injury. He's only had limited amount of games. 50 is a stretch for that.
100%. It's definitely a long stretch.
Well, I just think, he's been working heavily on his shot with St. Louis, hasn't he?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I want to have faith that he can achieve 40 and prove that he's a goal scorer. But 30 is reasonable.
Now, as I alluded to that, they'll probably need some more scoring pieces, but like, would you agree with me, or what would your conversation piece be about Cole Caulfield being able to reach that 40, 50 goal mark in the season? Like, what do you think he needs to do in order to reach that goal?
I think he needs to play like Erik Karlsson. I think he just needs to not care about wins. He needs to cherry pick a little bit on the power play. He needs to demand being the main guy to get the puck on a stick to take the shots.
So just be more selfish.
Exactly. He needs to. It's 50% selfish, 50% leadership. Like, he needs to show, I want to be a leader. I'm demanding the puck because I know my skill. But he also needs to be like on a 2-on-1 with his captain. He needs to look him off and take the shot more than pass it if he's going to hit 50. It needs to be stuff like that where he needs to believe in himself, where he's shooting at a high enough clip that it makes sense that he scores 50 because, he had 400, 500 shots this year. Okay, well, he scored it on 10% of his shots. That makes sense. But he can't be expecting to score like 20% of his shooting with only 250 shots and 50 goals. Like, that for him won't work. But that's what I think. He'll need to be a little bit more selfish, but also a leader saying, hey, I'm here now. Give me the puck. I'm going to show you what I can do. All right, the Ottawa Senators. They add Korpisalo, Boko Imama, Kubalik, and Tarasenko. They lose DeBrincat, Holden, Watson, and Gauthier and Talbot. They have $60,000 in cap. Their top prospects are Ridley Gregg, Zach Ostapchuk, Igor Sokolov, Tyler Boucher, and Jacob Bernard-Docker, who they almost lost on waivers. Their 2024 draft picks, they have 2 firsts, a second, 3/4, a fifth, and a sixth. I don't think that they're going to trade anyone just due to the fact that they don't have much cap and they kind of made their big trade with Chychrun last year. I actually have them as 4th in the Atlantic, though. I have this Ottawa Senators team in the playoffs.
Yeah, I think this team's going to be a little bit overhyped this year. I don't think Brady Tkachuk's going to be able to single-handedly bring this team to a playoff spot. I think Tarasenko doesn't fill the void of losing DeBrincat. And goaltending, they got Korpisalo as their starter, I believe. I don't see them living up to the hype. I mean, they need Pinto signed as well, I believe, and he just went back home to New York to train. Batherson isn't he out right now?
Yeah. No, Norris. Norris, season ending.
Right, Norris.
Season ending again.
So, I mean, this team, it might struggle this year for me. So I don't see them making playoffs this year as of right now.
Yeah, I mean, I watched the game on Sunday against Tampa, and I thought I saw an all-around complete game by them. I mean, like, a guy like Matthew Joseph, who's going up against his former team, like, he went top bins, and I saw a good game by Brady Kachuk, who is their captain. He's going to have a great year, I think. Vladimir Tarasenko, like, he may have a good year in his new environment with the Senators. I mean, obviously, he's trying to fill that void without DeBrincat there. They are a bit overhyped, I will agree, but I can't say them. Sorry, I cannot see them making playoffs for sure.
And I mean, I think it also comes down. I hope Sandin pans out for them. I hope Chikrin has a good year for them.
Because that was a big haul for Chikrin, I remember.
Exactly. Well, and I hear that they're willing to trade Matthew Joseph. So who knows, right?
I don't think it's so much willing as have to.
Yeah, exactly.
Pinto's contract is pretty much exactly dollar for dollar what Joseph is making. And if you have to pick one, I would also probably pick Shane Pinto because he's just a better goal scorer. And you're paying Matthew Joseph like $4 million as a third liner. That's a tough pill to swallow when they're trying to get back into the playoffs. So I can see why they're doing it. But no one wants to help them. That's the thing. They are basically offering him to everyone for nothing. Like, they're giving him away just for the cap space. They don't want to give him away because they traded Nick Paul for him.
And then look how much that is backfiring in their face now. Because Nick Paul is lighting it up for Tampa. And now they're, like you said, paying $4 million for a third-line guy, and he has not been panning out.
And Tampa signed Paul for 7 years by $3 million.
See, now that is smart signings right
That's
there.
a big deal, and it seems to be working out for Paul in Tampa, and it's somewhat working out for Joseph, but he definitely is just not worth the $4 million, so he's the odd guy out.
Well, here's my things with Ottawa is that Pierre Dorian just loves giving these guys big paydays, dollar for dollar figures, because, yeah, they could have had a great year the year before, but then, just throwing out big numbers in these guys' face, that's really not going to, light them up, say, oh, yeah, okay, we're going to start scoring big goals for you, Pierre. No. That these guys are just going to get their paychecks, every month, and they'll be like, yeah, we're still going to be ice cold. So I don't know. A guy like Matthew Joseph on the third line paying $4 million is not a smart move. Nick Paul, though, in Tampa, the GM in Tampa is laughing to the Ottawa's organization for sure.
Well, let's move on to Tampa now. Not so much laughing about the Jeannot trade. Paul trade was a good one. But they've added Connor Sheary, Luke Glendening, Calvin DeHaan, Austin Watson on his PTO. Walteri Morella was a surprise out of camp, make the team. Logan Brown, Tyler Mott, Jonas Johansson in net. They lost Belmar, Maroon, Perry, Killorn, Elliott, Balsers, and Ian Cole. They have $0 in cap space. They have the 31st ranked prospect pool out of 32 in a bad way. Ethan Gauthier, Dylan Duke, Isaac Howard, Nico Huhtinen, and Hugo Alnefelt. They have no first, no second, a third, no fourth, a fifth, a sixth, and 3 sevenths. I don't think they can trade anyone, so I have no one traded here as well. I think that they're absolutely maxed out with their roster, but I have them second in the Atlantic when Vasilevsky comes back.
For me, I think this is right now, it's do or die for this team if they want to keep this core together. And for me, it's also the approach they take to signing Stamkos, right? He's on his contract year. Is he willing to take the hometown discount again for this team?
The worst thing for him is starting hurt.
Exactly. He's hurt right now. Vasilevsky's hurt right now. So this might affect how their year goes this year, right? Like, when Vazzy's back, is he going to be that amazing goaltender we all know, right? And they're not doing anything about it to fix their goalie situation right now.
No, everyone's saying that, but they can't. They have $0.
Exactly.
They can't add anyone, and they signed, was it Johansson? He's on like $880,000. So who can they get that's a starting goalie that's less than $880,000? And Martin Jones was the only guy that was out there, but they had to get rid of somebody to bring in Martin Jones. It was just an impossible situation. It is the reason why 5 teams have 3 goalies on their NHL roster right now, because they don't want to gift one to Tampa. But I just can't see how Tampa could add it. In the 24 hours that the waivers are alive, they'd have to make a trade, and I don't think anyone would help them out, because why would you help a 2-time winning Cup champ in the last couple of years?
Here's my thoughts on the Tampa Bay Lightning, especially here. But this season will prove for both clubs, the Florida Panthers and Tampa Bay, especially if it's going to end up being the Sunshine State. I mean, they're both looking at a dark, well, not really a dark future, but a dark year ahead. With Andrei Vasilevsky out till December, like, is he still going to remain as the top elite goaltender in the league when he returns? And then you just ended up offing Ryan McDonough, who was one of your top defensemen. Block shots, time on ice, and then, they got rid of Jan Ruda prior, but he was still a hell of a defenseman. And I don't know, you did lock down Braden Hagel. He got 2 goals tonight, which is pretty awesome. He's a great player. It was a good move. But I think for the dollar figure was a little bit absurd, because you knew that your captain was going into a contract year, and you totally effed him. And now you're in this whole debacle of, you're not on the same side with your captain. Management and Steven Stamkos are flip-flopping back and forth, saying they are on the same page, but in actuality, they're not. And Stamkos is pissed. So, what is Tampa going to do? Are they going to have a great season, or are they going to let the issues within management linger into the locker room too? I just don't know. Or are the injury bugs going to just bite them all?
The weird thing about Tampa Bay is no other team in the NHL can just decide to play good hockey out of nowhere. No other team can just be like, yeah, we're 10 points out of a playoff game halfway through the year. All right, we'll start playing. And they'll just turn it on, and they'll go on a crazy run, and they'll finish second or third in the division, because they're that good of a core. I wouldn't say they're that good of a team, but when the core players know it's time to go, there may not be a better core to get going. So we'll have to see. They need a kick in the butt right now. Started off with a win, and now I think they're 1-4. So really, they're not doing well. They had one of the first back-to-backs of the year compared to other teams and stuff. So there's reasons, and there's reasons not to, like Andrei Vasilevsky, but they're also leaving this Jonas Johansson and Matt Tompkins goalie tandem out to dry. They're one of the highest shots against teams in the league, one of the lowest shots for teams in the league. So multiple things to figure out, but I think that they'll get the reins in. And if I'm wrong about second, I just don't see a way that they're not at least in the playoffs in the wild card spot.
For me, it's do they see themselves as a playoff team? Do they wait till December, when I think Vasilevsky will probably be back? Do they wait till December to see where they're at in the standings? I mean, statistically, you shouldn't be losing to Chicago. You shouldn't be losing to Detroit, I don't think. In reality, to me.
Buffalo, Devin Levi killed them tonight. A rookie goalie in his first year.
Exactly. So, maybe if they had Vazzy, but, do they wait till, maybe December to, think, hey, we might need to trade something for a goalie if we're going to be a playoff team when Stamkos comes back. And for me, as of right now, with the start they're at, I think maybe if they're a playoff team, they're just making playoffs.
Riley, I'm sure you can speak for all Lightning fans across, the nation, even the world. You should be scared with that numbers. 31st in the league in a farm system. That draft stock is extremely scary looking, and you'd want to have a good future if all these guys don't start panning out, and you need to start offering certain players. It should be concerning for you guys to start thinking, okay, damn, we really need to start turning this boat around and start drafting or trading for picks, because this is getting a little out of hand,
Here's why I'm not, and I don't know if other Lightning fans share this. This team's window is literally 5 years. Then that's it. They're done. Everyone's going to be mid-30s. But what they've done smart is they'll have Kucherov with about 3 years, Point with about 3 years, Paul with 2 years, Hagel with 2 years. So there's going to be guys who are tradable for draft picks. Whether they're still high quality or they're just depth pieces at that point, their cap hits aren't too egregious for guys like Paul, especially. If Hagel's at least scoring 20 goals a year, 6.5 is swallowable even if Tampa retains some. So 5 years from now, these guys are going to be on contract, and they're going to have to move them on to build up the cabinet again. And you're going to see that, yes, they won't be in the playoffs anymore. Come 2030, this team is going to be in the lottery every year. It's just their rotation. They've been so good since Stamkos came in the league. Not playoffs every year, but they've been to 4 Cup finals, so many Eastern Conference finals. There's just a breaking point, and it's almost here. So I'm not worried about it. And at some point as a fan, I know fans, it's weird how fans always hate rebuilds. It's about time to just be thankful that your team actually had a run. Just think about 13 years the Buffalo Sabres haven't been in the playoffs. We've been to 4 Stanley Cups. Mm-hmm. Like, talk about a good, spoiled fan base. Us, Chicago, Pittsburgh, LA, Vegas.
Well, think of Colorado. They were dead last for a while there, when they got McKinnon, and then they had guys like Matt Duchene and Ryan O'Reilly fed up. Tyson Barrie. Yep. Okay, we want out. And then guess what? That led to them being the top in the West, and they got a Stanley Cup out of it. But could you imagine if those guys like Ryan O'Reilly and Matt Duchene and Tyson Barrie were still all there with the additions of Mikko Rantanen and Valeri Nichushkin and Bowen Byram? Like, that would just be an absolute elite team. But sometimes you have to hit rock bottom with these guys, and then, certain things can bloom. So I'm guessing it shouldn't be all too scary, but I guess time will tell, really.
Absolutely. And they could screw it up. They could absolutely screw it up, hang on to these guys all the way to contract end, and not be a good team. What do? Kucherov 36, Point 35, Stamkos already retired, Hedman retired, Sergachev mid-30s. Like, it's a scary outlook. Like, we talk about Pittsburgh being old. That's like 7 or 8 guys at 35 plus years old. Talk about an old team. That would be ancient. So that's my thought on where they'll have to go from there.
Well, and there is rumblings out there that Tampa might be okay with moving on from Stamkos, though, like this year.
I think part of the reality is they have to.
Exactly.
They have no money, which is why I brought up about the whole Carey Price, LTIR situation. No team needs that more than Tampa. No one else has their captain coming up with 0 cap space. Like, he wants to be there. Yes, of course they want him there, but they have to ditch the emotional side and go, we have no money. What are we going to offer him? 1, that's fair to him, and 2, that is going to make him want to stay here. Like, okay, so Luke Glendenning's off the books at the end of the year, whatever. That's $1 million. Is Stamkos going to sign for $1 million? No,
well, probably
not a chance.
But I mean, it does suck depending on how long this injury is. Him not playing, it does affect his trade value right now, and it does affect him proving what kind of money he's worth, right? I mean, I don't think he's going to want $1 million for sure, but I don't think he's going to want maybe under 5 either, though,
No. Well, the biggest problem for Tampa is right now we have Brent Seabrook's LTIR that's keeping us at $0. We lose that. So the cap goes up $4 million. We lose $6.75 million. We're actually negative $2.75 million in cap now. So it's like, not only does Stamkos not get signed, someone who's making $2 million has to go. So it really is a situation where they've emotionally just had to go, we have to be okay with losing him. Yeah. Because we're probably going to. It doesn't make sense for us to try and keep him. And who are we going to trade? Victor Hedman? Because guess who's up next year? Victor Hedman. And guess what we don't have money for? Victor Hedman. Like, maybe you do trade him because he's coming up. Or maybe one of these guys they just signed a long-term contract isn't fulfilling what they want, so they get rid of one of them. Like, Chernak is a great defender, but he's been typically playing on the third line of defense. Do you want to be paying that guy $5 million on your third pairing? Not really. But
And that's when it comes full circle. You know, the general manager can throw big fat bags of money at these players all they want, but that's really not going to, get the ultimate productivity out of them. You know, yeah, money can talk, but like it doesn't always get the guys magically scoring all these goals for them. You know what I mean? So money can talk all it wants, but productivity won't always be there to back it up.
Yeah, I think I posted this in a Tampa thread on Bleacher Report too. It's like people were complaining about the year already and stuff. And is it so bad if it falls off the wagons this year? You know, forever this team will be able to say they literally started the 2020 decade for 3 years in the Stanley Cup final. Like, I don't know if any team can say that they've been 3 years in a row. I'm trying to think back who.
The New York Islanders in the 80s.
In the 80s,
when they won 4 in a row, and that was the end of that era.
I'm trying to think the Cap era, because you had Pittsburgh, Detroit, Pittsburgh, but I don't think either of them were a third year when they went back-to-back cups versus each other. And then it's just been everyone else that's kind of two-peated along the way, but no one has gone 3 years straight. So really, when you think about it from a fan standpoint, it's like you should just accept it if it happens. Like, we've been spoiled rotten, really, as a fan base. And, you know, it sucks. If the last 2 years are we lost to Toronto in the first round, which I hate, and then we don't make the playoffs, you just got to take it for the fact that we won 2 Stanley Cups. It just
You guys were close in 2022, though.
They were, yeah. But they came up against the best team. There was no doubt that was the best team in the league. So there was no way that they were beating Colorado. And they were out of steam. They were out of gas. It proved it last year.
It's a lot of hockey in 3 years, right?
More than any other team in history, I believe, for games played. Because even when the Islanders went in the 80s, there was less games per year because there was less teams. So I just think that they just ran out of steam. All right. Toronto Maple Leafs. They add Domi, Bertuzzi, Reeves, youngster from Kamloops Blazers. Fraser Minton makes a team. They add Martin Jones, Klingberg, and Noah Gregor on a PTO. They lose Gustafsson, Hall, Bunting, Shalgren, and Muzzin, who was just LTIR, but they lose that contract. They have $0 in cap. Top prospects are Matthew Nyes, who made the team, Joseph Woll, Topi Niemela, Nick Robertson, and Fraser Minton. They have a first, a third, a fourth, 3/5, a sixth, and 2/7. I don't see them trading anyone. They have gone all in on this roster. This is who they're going to play with. And I have them as first in the Atlantic, and I think that they're going to run away with the Atlantic.
Yeah, I think this is this is our year type thing, you know, like they just inked Matthews to a 4-year deal, right? Like, this is a team that wants to get things done now. At the same time, unfortunately, they also signed the amount of guys to not be able to get Nylander the right deal to stay. I mean, I think they want him to stay, but does Nylander, as a guy that's already taken a discount, and Matthews just shown that he wasn't willing, so that kind of sucks for that situation. I want Nylander to stay. Another trade ship I can also see is potentially, what's his name there? The defenseman. No, the defenseman they just got from Dallas.
Oh, Klingberg.
Klingberg. Maybe him. But, I mean, I think he is on the power play.
He seems to be doing well.
Yeah, so I do like him in Toronto. In Toronto, I think right now this is their let's do this moment, right? And Matthews is already off to a hot start, back-to-back hat tricks. That's awesome to see.
Tarps on Star of the Week.
Yeah,
it's voted by the fans.
Exactly, so good for him. I see, as of right now, this team, I want them to see top of the division.
I think, first off, I agree with you both. I think they're a powerhouse. They're going to be something to deal with this year. But you know what? I said it since day one, and I'm going to keep saying it. They need to stop signing all these Toronto-born area players and start getting grit. They had guys like Matt Martin, who was atrocious to play against. Great guy. He was gritty and he was a goon. But you know what? They got guys like Max Domi and Ryan Reeves on the same team now. That is going to be nuts. Well, Ryan Reeves has already proved. He went up against Arbor Xhekaj.
Wi-Fi, sickest nickname out there.
Right. You know what I mean? Like they need the gritty guys out there. Like they got the Matthews, the Nylanders, the Mitch Marners, but like those guys will get you the goals. You need guys that are going to stick up for your players, get into the fights, get the crowd riled up, and just energize the bench. Ryan Reeves does that. He did that in Pittsburgh. He did that in Minnesota, St. Louis, yada 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 yada. But now having on a Toronto team, I think this might be the year.
Well, and Tyler Bertuzzi, I think he's one that's not scared to back down from a fight.
Throw a hit, throw a punch. Yeah, Tyler Bertuzzi is a great guy too. Detroit Red Wings, I mean, he was gritty in there too.
I just think, I really do, when you talk about teams molding after each other, this team screams 2020-2021 Tampa Bay Lightning. Stars up front, good second line, third line of defensive, reliable, but gritty players. You would that whole line for Tampa: Gord, Coleman, Goodrow. All of them would drop the gloves. Who's the third line here? It's potentially Bertuzzi, Domi, and someone else. I can't think who it is. But
it's Fraser Minton currently right
Fraser
now.
Minton currently. So, we've seen Mintz drop the gloves a time or two here in town, but I don't think he'll do it in the NHL quite yet. But, they have a good makeup, and then they have Pat Maroon for the Lightning, I think, changed the whole organization. I think Reeves has a chance to do that here. Whereas Maroon came off the cup with St. Louis and then came to Tampa. I know Reeves doesn't have a cup, but he's that exact same type of person that will help this team come along to become the winning team by not taking things too seriously, but holding guys accountable when he needs to and being a real voice in the locker room. I don't want to say the Leafs are going to win the cup because I feel like everybody out there is saying that. But it's hard to not look at them and say, that's potentially the best team in the league.
Well, and you look at it, it seems like fan base-wise, Edmonton and Toronto are the two Canadian favorites to win the cup, or at least to go deep in the playoffs, right? But for me right now, it's definitely more so Toronto, I think, how they're looking at it. But it also comes down to their goaltending, too. Can Samsonov be the same goalie he was last year? They got Matt Murray is a long-term injury, I believe.
Yeah, he's gone.
Can Wall be a good backup goalie, right? Like, I don't know. Right now, Toronto, it does look promising, I think, to still be the top team in that division. So I'm gonna say they're looking good for that spot.
Yeah, they're an all-around great team. They got great defense and Mark Giordano and Morgan Riley. They got TJ Brody, which is falling apart a little bit, but that's another story. Jake Muzzin is Dunzo, and then you got the younger guys coming up. So Toronto on paper, even on the ice, they've already proved it within the first few games. Like they are a team to meddle with.
All right, let's pick our playoff spots. As I said, I'm going 5. I'm going Toronto, Tampa, Buffalo, Ottawa. I said Florida. I'm going to stick with it. It's probably my least confident pick because you don't really want to doubt the Boston Bruins, but I'm sticking with my gut. I'm saying the Florida Panthers at 5.
My 4 will definitely be Boston, Tampa, Toronto, Florida Panthers.
Yeah, for me, it's going to come down to, I think, Boston, definitely Toronto. If Tampa's a contending team this year, I want to say Tampa. And for that 4th spot, it's going to be between Florida if they live up to the hype still, or it's going to be between Buffalo as well. They're off cold right now, unfortunately, but yeah, so my 4 will be Boston, Toronto, Tampa, Buffalo. Hopefully, Buffalo for my 4.
Now that the season has started, we are starting to do things like on our Twitter at Gameday Tarps. We are doing daily polls on games. So we're asking you which tarp are you repping? That means you are picking your team. You're selecting in the poll who you are cheering for that game. On Instagram, again at Gameday Tarps. We are posting a lot of our episode stuff coming out. We're moving TikTok videos over there that we are making, which I'll get into next. And we're starting to grow that social platform as well. And as mentioned on TikTok, we are also at Gameday Tarps. We'll be making periodic videos about multiple leagues, multiple different hockey ideas and things that we are thinking about. So go ahead and give us a follow on any of those social media channels. We'd love to have you follow along with us as we continue to grow this journey. And we thank you as always for listening. And we ask that you rate and review the podcast on any of the streaming services that we provide, which is pretty much every one. And this is the end of Gameday Tarps Podcast, Episode 10.